In a garage, Charlie's repairing the plane that his wife Sarah gifted him on his birthday. Sarah interrupts him to tell him she's leaving soon for a business conference in London. She invites him to come with her again, but Charlie turns her down because he has lots of work. Sometime later, Charlie arrives at the CIA headquarters. On his way to the decryption and analysis department, he goes through all the security scanners that he invented and finally gets to work. Suddenly he receives a message from Inquiline, a mysterious person he's been in contact with for years. As usual, they have valuable classified intel to sell him, although this time Inquiline warns him that these documents could put the CIA at risk. Charlie tries to guess their location and says Istanbul, but Inquiline brushes him off. Afterward he works on analyzing the material, but surprisingly not even a genius man like him can crack the code. After lunch break, Charlie goes back to his office and gets a call from Sarah, who informs him that she's already arrived in London. However, Charlie already knows because he's been tracking her. They don't talk much because he's desperate to go back to the mysterious documents. Since he still can't crack the code, he takes his computer to the restricted area, where a more advanced system helps him progress faster. It takes him a while, but he finally opens the information in the documents, which leaves him in shock. These are top secret government files revealing that a drone strike disguised as a self-deletion bombing was authorized and covered up. There are clips from the news reporting 150 casualties, including French Special Forces and Danish Marines. This whole operation was organized by Chief Moore, who is also Charlie's boss. That night at home, Charlie tries calling Sarah but she doesn't answer, so he leaves a voicemail. The next day Charlie arrives at the office and is surprised to find Moore waiting for him. Moore takes Charlie to the office of O'Brien, who became director very recently. She explains that there's been a terrorist attack at a hotel in London and Sarah was one of the victims. Charlie refuses to believe it and wants to call Sarah, so Moore turns on the TV to show him the news. The reporter describes how 4 terrorists bursted into the hotel, took 4 hostages and killed 2 of them. Next, Moore plays the hotel's security footage, which shows all the chaos during the incident and confirms that Sarah was one of the victims. When Charlie goes home, he finds dozens of reporters waiting for an interview and the police trying to keep them back. A friend helps Charlie enter the house without being bothered. The next day Charlie confronts Moore and supervisor Caleb because he's very suspicious of what happened. He can't believe the terrorists could have slipped past the thousands of security cameras in London, not to mention they drove into traffic. Moore promises they're investigating but Caleb sends him home. The following day Charlie goes to the airport to pick up Sarah's body and her belongings. At home, he looks inside the suitcase and finds a gift Sarah had bought for him, which makes him have a breakdown. Tired of being at home, Charlie goes back to work and uses the restricted computer to hack into the security cameras at the hotel and the nearby streets. He puts together a timeline of the events and shows it to his superiors. The 4 terrorists stole a vehicle in the East End, then entered the hotel through the service where they professionally scrubbed out all prints and DNA. Apparently they had a meeting with Impact Investments from Indonesia, but something went wrong and an argument started in the corridor. One of the firm's security men got angry, so a terrorist opened fire, killing one of the guards and leaving the other one in critical condition. Hotel security was immediately alerted and they called the police. Desperate to leave the building without getting caught, the terrorists entered the conference room and captured some hostages. Sarah was taken because she tried to help some of the attendants to escape. Charlie's run voice and facial analysis, so he's managed to get the identities of the 4 terrorists. They're Mishka from Moscow, a former South African Special Forces operative called Lawrence, mercenary Horst, and former intelligence officer Gretchen. Noticing Caleb's and Moore's lack of reaction, Charlie realizes they already knew all this. They tell Charlie they're already working on it and send him to see a therapist. The next day Charlie hides a chip in his ID badge and passes through security without the scanners detecting it. In his office, he prints all the classified files and uses a skimmer on the printer to make a digital copy. That night Charlie goes to a bar and keeps staring at a jukebox. The following morning Charlie confronts his superiors again using the printed files. He lists all of Moore's dirty missions, like bombing a Syrian hospital and striking an Allied base in Yemen, which killed thousands of civilians. He threatens to take everything to the director and reveals that he's triggered a dead man switch. If he doesn't enter a code every 5 hours, the evidence will be sent to the most important news outlets. In exchange for his silence, Charlie asks for full CIA training, fake passports, cash, a gun, and intel on Sarah's killers. After the meeting, Charlie returns to his car and throws up because of the stress. In the office, Moore says that the dead man switch is a bluff, but Caleb points out they can't risk it. They'll search for the trigger if it's indeed a bluff, then they can arrange a deadly accident during training. Sometime later Caleb and his team try to understand how Charlie copied the confidential files. They discuss the possibility of a skimmer, which wouldn't work on their secured computers but could be used on a printer. Charlie could have sent the files to the printer and used a magnetic strip to copy the data. Searching security footage they confirm that Charlie bought a magnetic strip at a store, but they still can't tell how he took it in and out of the building. The team also searches Charlie's house and eventually discovers he went to a certain bar twice. They go to the bar to search it and find an ABBA CD under the jukebox. Caleb chooses that CD in the jukebox catalog and only noise can be heard, so they take out the CD that Charlie left behind. Meanwhile, Charlie arrives at a CIA training facility, where he's welcomed by Colonel Henderson. They start at the shooting range, but unfortunately Charlie isn't a good shooter. He needs to get really close to the target to shoot the right spot. However, when it comes to making bombs, Charlie works outstandingly fast, impressing Henderson. Next, Charlie needs to learn his new identity, so Henderson harasses him and throws him around so Charlie can still recite his new information even under pressure. Lastly, they get the new passports done. That night, Henderson goes to Charlie's room and tells him he isn't a killer, but Charlie insists he wants justice. Then Henderson pulls out a gun and gives it to Charlie, asking him to aim at his chest. Charlie's hands won't stop shaking and he ends up lowering the gun. At the office, the agents spend several hours decrypting the information in the CD until they discover that Charlie had been bluffing about the dead man's switch. They immediately inform their superiors, unaware that Charlie is spying on them. It turns out that the chip he hid on his badge was actually a bug that he planted on the files he gave to his bosses. Moore immediately calls Henderson and tells him to arrest Charlie, however he's already escaped. After hanging up, Moore finally sees the bug on the files and talks to Charlie directly to tell him this is treason. Charlie gets rid of his earpiece before boarding a plane. Once Charlie reaches London, he goes through customs and starts making his way to Paris. His fake passport appears in the CIA's computer, so Moore sends Henderson after him. In Paris, Charlie rents a hotel room near the restaurant where Gretchen is frequently seen. Eventually she shows up and is close enough for him to start tracking her phone. Charlie then spends the day outside Gretchen's building and waits until she's gone. When a tenant comes out, he uses the chance to get inside. Then he follows an online video to pick the lock of Gretchen's place. Charlie begins searching the apartment and takes pictures of Gretchen's schedule. He also finds a gun in a drawer, so he decides to keep it. At that moment his tracker warns him that Gretchen is coming back, so he rushes to the stairs to wait for her. However, when she finally comes home, he can't pull the trigger. Feeling disappointed, he rushes back to the hotel and pretends Sarah is waiting for him. After calming down, he takes a close look at the pictures and learns that Gretchen has been going to the hospital often. Hacking into her health history reveals she has allergies. The next morning, Charlie buys tons of flowers. Then he waits at the cafe until he sees Gretchen and follows her to the hospital. Gretchen is going through some tests, but the doctor notices that the computer screen is malfunctioning, so he leaves the room to request help. Charlie comes in dressed as a doctor and locks Gretchen inside the machine. She starts to panic, but Charlie ignores her while filling the chamber with pollen. The doctor and a nurse hear the noise, but the door is locked too. Gretchen starts to get weak because of her allergies, and Charlie says he'll help if she tells him where to find Horst, since he's the one who shot Sarah. The allergies don't let Gretchen talk, so Charlie opens the chamber, only for Gretchen to push him against the desk. They start fighting all over the room, throwing each other against every piece of furniture. Charlie takes out his gun, but Gretchen brings him down and opens the door to finally run away. A desperate Charlie follows her to the street, but before he can shoot, Gretchen is struck by a car. Horrified by the body, Charlie forces himself to come closer to grab her phone. Then he runs away and throws the lab coat in the trash. At the hotel, he washes off all the blood and packs his things. That night he goes to the bus station and buys a ticket for Marseille. Soon the news of Gretchen's death reaches the CIA. O'Brien questions more about this, and he only says that Gretchen appears to have been killed by one of their own. That night Charlie goes to a bar and drinks a lot to drown the guilt he feels over Gretchen's death. He thinks he sees Sarah dancing, but a closer look reveals it's a woman that looks like her. Then Charlie notices Henderson approaching him and panics. He pushes people until he manages to leave the bar and runs through the streets until he finds a different bar to hide in. Henderson follows him there too, so Charlie rushes to the bathroom and locks the door. Unfortunately, there are no windows here, so Charlie has no choice but to come out. He joins Henderson at the bar and learns that he found him by tracking Gretchen's phone. After a short chat, Charlie reveals a timer on his phone and runs out before a bomb explodes in the bathroom. Chaos takes over the bar and Henderson loses sight of Charlie. The tracker on his phone doesn't work anymore either. The next morning Charlie contacts the Inquiline to get their help and leaves on a cargo plane to Turkey. In Istanbul, he goes to a restaurant and texts Inquiline. Noticing a man's phone ringing, he tries to approach him but is blocked by a woman who tells him to check his phone. Then Charlie leaves the restaurant and the woman approaches him again, confirming she's Inquiline. She already knows about his wife, so she makes him hide his hat and backpack in a shopping bag. Inquiline wants him to pretend to shop for a while and meet him at a garage. Moments later Charlie meets with her again and she drives him to her home. During the trip Inquiline shares that she became a hacker 6 years ago after her husband died. He was a CIA asset and worked for Russian intelligence. In fact, he was the original Inquiline and taught her everything. The official story says he accidentally fell from a window. When they reach her home, Inquiline says this is the only place she's managed to stay longer than 3 years and admits she's tired of running. If the Russians ever come for her, she has a gun to self-delete. Then they start talking about the case. Horst is the leader in charge of hiring mercenaries for more. Lawrence is an arms dealer, so Inquiline volunteers to pose as an arms seller to contact him. Lastly there's Mishka, who travels frequently and posts everything online. They inspect the pictures closely and find a woman with him. Facial recognition takes them to her Instagram account and they confirm she's in Spain. The next day Caleb tells his team to keep eyes on the terrorists to find Charlie. O'Brien meets with Moore and tells him she wants him to stop running Black Ops without her authorization. Moore says her predecessor gave him the same speech, so he'll tell her the same thing he said then. She has his full support. After the meeting, O'Brien gets in her car and her assistant shows her a picture of Henderson in Spain. It's confirmed that Moore sent him, so O'Brien sends one of her own agents after him. Meanwhile, Charlie and Inquiline find Mishka by hacking into a hotel's security cameras. Charlie then travels to Madrid and stays at the same hotel. He learns that Mishka likes swimming in the pool that connects two buildings by their roofs. At the same time, Henderson tracks Charlie down in the area. The next day, Charlie starts building a device that will help him get Mishka and hides it inside the hotel. Afterward, he follows Mishka to the bar, unaware of Henderson in the lobby. Charlie sees a suspicious man at the bar and realizes he's seen him before, which means he's being followed. He tells Inquiline through his earpiece, so she searches his face and confirms he's a CIA agent. She also sees Henderson on the camera and tells Charlie to abort, but he wants to stick to the plan. When Mishka goes to the pool, Charlie confronts him to ask where to find Horst. If he doesn't talk, the pool will be destroyed. Mishka doesn't believe him and starts swimming away, so Charlie presses a button and the glass starts to crack. A desperate Mishka starts swimming faster, but it's too late. The glass breaks and he falls to his death while the water floods the street. Then Inquiline warns Charlie that Henderson and the other agent are coming closer and gives him directions to escape. A chase ensues and Henderson almost catches him, but at that moment the other agent also attacks. The man tackles Henderson and they start fighting in the laundry room. Charlie watches how they keep throwing each other all over the room and Henderson puts the man's head inside a washing machine. The agent pulls out a gun and shoots Henderson, only for him to steal the gun and shoot him back. Then Charlie comes inside and wonders if he should help them, but Inquiline reminds him to run away. The next day, O'Brien brings Moore to her office and asks about Charlie. Moore says he's on bereavement leave and she lets him go before revealing she's got footage from the hotel. Meanwhile, Caleb and his team look at the same footage and realize Charlie had help. They look at Charlie's encrypted chats and finally find the messages from Inquiline. After a long search, they discover the file of the dead agent known as Inquiline and guess that his wife must have taken over. That night, Charlie and Inquiline agree to sleep next to each other just for company. However, they're woken up by Inquiline's bird screeching and they see a bunch of agents approaching on the security cameras. The duo immediately runs through a hidden tunnel in the wall and as they make their way out, Charlie sees a drone in the sky. By sneaking into another building, the duo manages to keep going and leaves the neighborhood right before the agents storm into the house. The computer is already deleting all the files, so there's nothing left for them. After running down the beach, the duo gets to Inquiline's car and they're seen by the drone. Soon the agents come after them with open fire, even following them on a boat. After a long chase, the agents manage to damage the car enough to make it stop and Inquiline is mortally wounded. Charlie has no choice but to push the body to the other seat and take over the wheel so he can keep driving until he finally loses his pursuers. Later, he leaves the car in the garage and kisses Inquiline goodbye. The next day, Charlie contacts Lawrence and pretends to be an arms dealer to arrange a meeting. Then Charlie buys new electronics and travels to Romania. In an abandoned building, he records his own face and hacks a security feed in Berlin. Now the CIA thinks he's in Berlin and sends their people there. When Lawrence finally arrives, he finds a ringing phone on a chair. Charlie tells him to look inside a box and Lawrence finds a bunch of bombs. If he moves, they'll detonate. As Lawrence notices a picture of Sarah in the box, Charlie appears behind him asking Horst's location and promising to deactivate the bombs if he cooperates. Lawrence explains that Horst operates in Russian waters and typically receives deliveries at a Baltic seaport. Charlie then asks how to contact Horst, so Lawrence says he only gets messages through secret codes from his men. All the numbers and names are on his phone, which he tosses on the ground. After grabbing the phone, Charlie leaves and hears the bombs killing Lawrence in the other room. Soon the CIA gets the news of Lawrence's death in Romania and they realize they've been looking at fake footage. Later in a Russian hotel, Charlie imagines Sarah with him and opens the gift. It's a puzzle that he solves quickly and has a sweet message from his wife inside. In the morning, he goes to the port and sees a suspicious vehicle. He sends the code to Horst's men and sees a guy by the suspicious car check his phone. He follows the man and takes pictures of his boat before leaving. After buying some tools, Charlie goes back to the hotel and tracks down the yacht that the boat belongs to by searching its registration number. He also studies the sea routes Horst might be using. In the morning, Charlie approaches the boat and someone knocks him out from behind, causing him to drop Sarah's puzzle. Charlie is taken to the yacht where he finally meets Horst, who found the bomb Charlie hid earlier. Horst has noticed that Charlie killed the others indirectly and thinks he's not capable of doing it face to face. He hands Charlie a gun and asks him to do it, but Charlie can't and puts the gun down. Suddenly the yacht starts turning into the opposite direction and the crew panics. Charlie reveals he's taken control of the yacht, which is CIA administered. Since he worked on the protocols that protect this yacht, It was easy for him to hack into it and send it to Finland. Soon the yacht is surrounded by the Finnish Navy and Interpol, who immediately arrest Horst and his men. Sometime later O'Brien gives a press conference to announce they've arrested all the dirty agents that have been using the CIA's resources for illegal activities. Charlie is approached by Henderson, who tells him he's proud of what he's done. After visiting Sarah's grave, Charlie goes home and finally takes the plane for a ride. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.